Hello and welcome to This Week at Charlestown Road, a branch of the Heaven Bound podcast. My name is Jason Harden. I'm here with Roger Schaus. This is where we reflect on the weekend that was. We dig a little deeper into a recent sermon to give you something to think about as this week unfolds and preview what's to come this next weekend at Charlestown Road. Roger, as hard as it is to believe, we are rounding the final corner of November, headed towards December. You this past Sunday focused on some choices during the storm.
Yeah, our theme this year is celebrating the seasons of faith. And around here, every season has unique storms. In our spring, it's always the tornadoes. And now we get to wintertime, and they're talking about snowstorms. And so there's always storms, but there are greater storms in life. And our congregation has faced several of those as different families have gone through some serious health issues. There's been some deaths, and those are all difficult times. And it would be wonderful if we could just read a verse and all storms would go away, but they don't. The Lord's reminder in Matthew chapter 7, both the wise man and the foolish man, they both encountered storms. And so the question is not how do I avoid storms, but what do they do to me? And more so, how am I supposed to respond? And so that's kind of the direction. We began in Mark 4, where we find the disciples in the boat in a storm with Jesus. And the storm was severe. Men of God, the apostles, were scared. Storm eventually ended because Jesus ended it. And we find out that God is greater than all the storms. But the heart of our lesson took us to James chapter 1. And we remember particularly in verse 2 where James says, "Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." Oftentimes, storms are God's classrooms where we learn our greatest lessons. And so we talked about just a couple of simple lessons we learn out of that. We've talked about how we have a choice when storms come. And they just pulled right out of James chapter 1. We can welcome God's people around us, or we can isolate ourselves. And again, that's a choice we make. We need to be around God's people. The second choice we make is to trust God's promises rather than be defeated by your troubles. And again, that's a choice we make. Do I believe God to be true in the storms? Third choice we make is to pray rather than worry. Worry won't do anything. And then number 4 is to choose to endure with grace rather than giving up. And through all of that, we just kind of walk through some other verses, but it's a great reminder for us that storms happen. And the question is, what's it going to do to me? And that's the heart of the lesson.
It was a powerful lesson and freely available still at charlestownroad.org in our sermon podcast feed. We always appreciate so much those volunteers who preserve those recordings, make them so easily accessible. If you weren't able to be with us, or if you need a refresher here in the middle of the week, would certainly encourage you to take advantage of those opportunities. Roger, just a couple of questions as this week unfolds. Obviously, it is Thanksgiving. It's not hard for me to imagine someone listening here on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, and they're working on preparing some food in the kitchen, or they're in their car driving around and running all sorts of last-minute errands. It's a busy week, but a week where a lot of people have something playing in the background. Nothing that we can occupy our minds with better than God and His Word. You highlighted from James chapter 1 2 words from verse 2 that I think are valuable to think about even on Thanksgiving Eve, if you will. You highlighted when and consider when it comes to these storms. So let's think through those. When, not if, but when storms come.
And that comes directly from verse 2. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials. He didn't say, I hope you never will. You might, perchance, but when. It's almost as if it's a certainty. And when one gets just a few miles on their life, they realize that is true. Whether we talk about work issues, we talk about situations in the family, we talk about health issues, parents, grandparents. There's just so many layers that the trials of life come upon us. And so it is something. And so this is not something, like a kid in a classroom and the teacher's teaching them some quantum physics or something. And he says, will I ever need this? This is something we will need, because James says when it happens.
All right. And the second key word is consider. Why do we need to be worried about considering as storms approach?
Yeah, and consider is the idea of thinking about it. It's about observing it. So often I think our choice in life is, let's get through this troublesome time as quick as we can. Let's get out of this valley as fast as we can. Let's just put this all behind us. Let's just kind of, hopefully it goes away and never comes back. And we're none the better. We've learned no lessons. It's not helped us. But the very idea of considering this means you put some thought into it. And this is where the choices are going to come from. When I consider, well, I have options. Is this going to defeat me, or am I going to be a victor in this? Is this going to define my life forever, or is this something that's going to make me a better, stronger person? But that all comes about from learning from it. Let it consider. It's like grandma's soup. You just put it on the stove and let it simmer a while. We got to let some things simmer in our minds and our hearts. And when we do that by reflecting, we learn a lot of great lessons.
Yeah. In listening to your sermon, you used two phrases that I jotted down there. Don't rush. Number one, what a powerful reminder. Like you said, when it is so tempting to just try and rush through the storm, let's get it over with as quickly as possible. But I jotted down, don't rush. God is teaching you some things. That was a phrase that you used. And if we are so intent on getting through it as quickly as we possibly can, and then just leaving it in the rearview mirror and never thinking about it, maybe we miss out on some of those things that we could learn.
Absolutely. Where I live, in the addition I live, there are no street lights. And so at night it gets really, really dark, really dark. But I love to go out there on a clear night, and you can see so many stars. But in the daylight, when the sun's out, you don't see them. And so the point of that is, I see things in the storm. I see things in darkness I never see in the sunlight of life. And if I try to avoid the darkness of life, run through that as quick as I can, there's going to be some great, great lessons I'm never going to learn, because I need to see those things. And that's where consider comes from.
All right. So for the next few minutes, let's dig just a little deeper into these four choices during the storm, all from, like you said, James chapter 1. Choice number 1, welcome God's people around you rather than isolating yourself. Why do you think, human nature-wise, it is tempting for most of us in a storm to choose isolation rather than welcoming God's people?
First and foremost, a lot of times we just don't feel good, whether it's emotionally or physically. We just don't feel good. And when we don't feel good, inside or outside, we just don't want people around us. We just kind of push them away. And sometimes we just think, I'll get through this on my own, and I don't need you. And we went to 1 Kings 19 about Elijah. And that was right after his triumphant victory with the prophets of Baal. And the queen, Jezebel, put out a death warrant for him, and he went to a cave and lodged there. He was staying there. And God asked him, what are you doing here? And that's a question sometimes we need to ask ourselves. Sometimes I'm praying that my problem goes away, my health gets better, things turn around, and maybe God's answer to that prayer is his people. God sends us his people. They're there to encourage me. They're there to support me. They may bring me things that I need, but that's so important to do that. It's more easy to be discouraged when you're by yourself. It's more easy to think that this is a hopeless situation. I remember years ago visiting this lady who, her medical charts probably like the old Yellow Pages. I mean, she had everything wrong with her. She had cancer. She had heart issues. She had everything wrong with her. And I remember going and visiting her and feeling like, man, she makes me feel so much better than I made her feel. Because she was chipper and she was happy, and she did not let those problems get a hold of her. So that's a choice you make. And again, that's something we need to do. I think a classic example we used in our lesson was from 2 Corinthians 7, when the Apostle Paul had troubles and talked about distress and being depressed, and God sent Titus. God sent something. Didn't give him a pill, didn't take away the problem. God sent one of his people. And so that is what we need. And we're on this journey together. We're after the same thing. We have a common bond. We have a common Savior. So together, we can do some things.
Choose to welcome God's people around you rather than isolating yourself. Choice number 2, choose to trust the promises of God rather than becoming defeated by your troubles. As we envision that person, Thanksgiving Eve, it's a busy day, but maybe it's a hard day. Maybe for the first time, they are experiencing these holidays in this season without a spouse for the first time in decades, or without a parent for the first time in all of their lives. And it is a stormy time. What would you say to that person about trusting the promises of God on a day like today?
Yeah, and I'll add a couple more layers. I know some people who will be celebrating Thanksgiving in the hospital because a loved one's in the hospital, and then things are really tough when it's that way. Out of verse 3 of James 1, when James says, "Knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance." The phrase testing of your faith comes from the idea of pottery. And the ancient guy, potterer, would put some things together with clay. He'd put it in the kiln or the fire. And if it's an inferior quality, it would crack and break. If it was strong, it would be there. And so James will bring this up even later on in the same chapter. He will say in verse 12, "Blessed is a man who perseveres under trial." Here's a man who's been tested and he's come through. So what we're talking about here is God's promises. He's promised in Hebrews 13 never to desert us. Psalms 23 verse 4, "Even though I go through the valley, I will be there with you." Those are promises we need to understand. Corinthians talks about how he'll not give us more than we can handle. And so this idea that, okay, my problems are great, the situation is grave, I don't see the outcome of this, but here's what God said, and I'm going to trust the Lord.
I appreciated a phrase that you used. I jotted down right beside that point. You can't control what happens on the outside, but you can control what happens on the inside. You can control who and what you're going to trust.
And that's true of our houses. It could be raining, it could be snowing on the outside, but it doesn't have to be snowing on the inside. You shut your door, don't you? That's true of people. You don't let anybody just come through that front door. It has to be somebody you know and somebody you trust. And so the problems are on the outside. I need to shut that door and realize that inside with me and God, all things are good.
All right. Choice number 3, choose to pray rather than worrying. We have talked a lot in various contexts about worrying on this podcast. For this particular episode, let's think through maybe some little prayer seeds. What sort of things can I pray when I find myself right in the middle of a storm?
Number one, I would just say, Lord, help me get through today. Don't solve the whole lifetime. Don't solve the whole month, the whole problem. But just today, Lord, help.
One day at a time.
Help me find some peace today. And sometimes it's nothing more than a nurse in a hospital who shows some kindness. Maybe it's a doctor who comes in and the report is better than what you expected. That's maybe what it is. It may be during this holiday time, there's that phone call from the prodigal who you didn't know whether he's going to call or not, but he did call. So, rejoice in the day and pray for calm today. I think that is essential as you do that. I'd also include in this just the idea, especially, Lord, help me know what to say. Sometimes it's not us, but it's a loved one who's going through the hardships. Maybe it's grandma and grandpa had passed away. Well, I'm going to be there at grandma's house. Help me, Lord, know what to say to grandma. Maybe it's my husband, my wife, who's the one in the hospital bed. It's not me, but it's them. Help me know what to say, Lord. And so just a simple little prayer, Lord, help me have the right words, the words of encouragement. Those are some good things.
Yeah. I loved how you reminded us of the prayer of Jehoshaphat. I may not know how to even begin to spell Jehoshaphat's name, but I can remember his prayer. We don't know what to do, but our eyes are on you. What a powerful thing to pray.
Yeah, see, and that illustrates that choice. Because when my eyes are on you, the Lord, I'm going to be thinking about him. I'm going to be praying to him. But when my eyes are on my problem, I'm going to be worrying. And so he didn't know what to do. He was facing a great war. He's facing an army greater than he was. He didn't know the outcome. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But he looked to God. And that's what we have to do. And that will quiet our hearts. That will help us through those times.
All right. Finally, choice number 4, choose to endure with grace rather than giving up. I think all of us can wrap our minds around what it looks like, perhaps what it means to give up in the face of great difficulty. What about this first part of the phrase, enduring with grace? What might it look like to endure a storm with grace?
And we see that all the time. We see some of our senior citizens coming into our assemblies, some of them carrying walkers, some are wheeled in on wheelchairs, and you can see a little bit of pain in their faces and everything. But here they are, and they're continuing to worship God. They love to be with God's people. They have a smile on their face as they worship God. And what they've done is they've endured. Here comes this widow, and this is a hard season for her because her husband's not with her, but because he's passed away. But here she is. And so the idea of endurance is we keep going on. And we do this without bitterness. We do this without complaining. We don't say, well, Lord, why did this happen? Why me? We do this with grace. And what a wonderful, wonderful example for our younger people and for our people who are new in faith, just to see these great, great senior citizens, these soldiers of Christ all around us, and to know their stories. They've got battle scars. They've had all kinds of things happen to them, but here they are. They're not going to give up. They're going to walk with the Lord all the way to the end.
Consider. That was the powerful word that you reminded us of from James 1 verse 2. Think about the storms. Don't rush. God is teaching you some things. Perhaps he is teaching you to be able to make these 4 choices. Choose to welcome God's people around you rather than isolating yourself. Choose to trust the promises of God rather than becoming defeated by your troubles. Choose to pray rather than worrying. Choose to endure with grace rather than giving up. Roger, really appreciate you using James chapter 1 to give us that powerful reminder. And again, if any of our listeners have not yet had the opportunity to watch or listen, or they need to revisit it, there's no doubt in my mind you know someone for whom these 4 choices would be so important. That resource is freely available, easily shareable from charlestownroad.org. Roger, it is Wednesday, and it is not just any Wednesday. For the last several years, the night before in our country, as we observe Thanksgiving, we have devoted our time together rather than being in individually segregated Bible classes, everybody together. We're going to be singing, Lord willing, this evening, reading scripture, praying. If our listeners have been following along on Fridays, we've been talking about giving thanks in 4 different areas of life. Gratitude for things visible, gratitude for things invisible, gratitude for things eternal, gratitude for things personal. What are you looking forward to about our time together tonight?
I think it's just a wonderful time just to put that thought before us. You know, sometimes we hurry to get to the Thanksgiving meal. We're looking forward to getting stuffed, and then we're going to sit on the couch and just watch football games so we fall asleep and just, you know, and sometimes the thankfulness is kind of short-ended.
Yeah.
And I think devoting an entire service. I love this podcast we have been doing on Fridays. I've had so many people talk to me about that. Just the different layers. I don't know how easy it is just to be thankful for the superficial things. They are important, but just things visible. But we've talked about invisible things. We've talked about internal things, and then we'll be talking about things that are personal to us. Those layers, there's just no ending to that. And once you start going through that, you start realizing, man, I just have got so much. God has been so good to me. I've got so much to be thankful for.
That is 7:00 p.m. tonight. It will be an hour very, very, very well spent. What about this Sunday at 9:30 a.m.?
We're going to still connect to thankfulness, and we're going to talk about thankful for what we have found. And it's going to come out of something Jesus said in Sermon on the Mount, and I think will be very helpful for us.
Excellent. At 5:00 p.m., we're going to do something special. Once a year, we record a Zoom conversation with one of the evangelists that we support in Rome, Italy. That is a part of our congregational work together. That Zoom call was recently recorded. We'll talk about the work of the kingdom in Rome. We'll play that video. It will be, I promise you, a very encouraging evening as we are reminded of the work that is going on and even encouraged to continue that work. And so that will be 5:00, Lord willing, p.m. on Sunday evening. Roger, I really appreciate you joining me in studio today. So appreciate the work that you did this past Sunday for us. We appreciate all of you for listening to This Week at Charlestown Road. We hope to see you tonight at 7:00 p.m. as we give thanks. We're already looking forward to Sunday, the best day of the week, and we would love to have you come and grow with us.